شيء، وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء، وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء، وبوجهك الباغي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس، يا نور يا نور يا قدوس، يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء، اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا، وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته، وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك، وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك، وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا، ولا لقبائحي ساترا، ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي، ظلمت نفسي، ظلمت نفسي، وتجرأت بجهلي، وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته، وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلته، وكم من عثار وقيته، وكم من مكروه دفعته، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم أعظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي، وقصرت بي أعمالي، وقعدت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أملي، وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي. يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي وفعالي، ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي، ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي، وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، إلهي وربي من لي غيرك. أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء. فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاءك. وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك، وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا، مستغفرا منيبا، مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وثاقي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي، يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك والسالف برك بي، يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته أو تبعد من أدنيته أو تشرد من آويته أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شأني يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم يا رب. وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثوه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي، فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أضج وأبكي لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرغت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وهبني يا إلهي صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبغى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه. وهو يناديك يا ربه. أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أغتوا لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وغضيت به من إخلاد معانديك. لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما. لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجل ثناؤك. قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي. يا ربي يا رب، أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة، وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قو على خدمتك جوارحي، واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في البارزين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرده، ومن كادني فكده، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك. وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من عدائي. يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء. يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقم، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم. صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله، وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Respected brothers, respected sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our condolences to you all on the death anniversary of the great lady Sayyida Muntadher. May the peace and blessings be upon her and upon her children. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa alafu at-tahiyyati was-salam ala nabiyyina nabiyyir rahmah Muhammadin wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. والبراءة من أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين. اللهم أنطقني بالهدى وألهمني التقوى ووفقني للتي هي أزكى. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم، وافتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. I hate to bother you guys in the back, but I'd love to see your faces here. Please, please. We have a lot of space here, plenty of space. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yeah, we have more, mashallah, a lot of space here. السابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As-Sayyida Al-Baneen. These type of personalities, it's really hard to analyze and discuss their biographies for many reasons. One of them, as great as she is, Sayyida Al-Baneen, you would imagine that she occupies a lot of space in the traditions and in the ahadith and in the historical narrations, but unfortunately, we do not find much references to this great lady. There's people and individuals, including some of our imam, who have been oppressed with this respect, meaning that they have not received the attention they deserve in terms of the reports and the ahadith that narrate their lives. But this great woman, from few narrations and few incidents, we can measure and gauge her greatness and her very high status. We find that first, she was someone that was chosen by the commander of the faithful after consulting with his older brother Aqil. Very famous narration that the commander of the faithful decided to get married. Now we know that in the biography of Amir al-Mu'mineen, after the demise of Lady Fatima, he married 8 women in total, of course in different times. So with Sayyidah Fatima, his total number of his wives were 9. And after the commander of the faithful decided to marry a Sayyidah al-Bayn alayhi salam, or when he decided to get married to women, he called his older brother Aqil. Now Aqil was known as a nasaba, or genealogist, someone who is an expert in ansab, the genealogy, or the word is not coming out right, but the ansab are those that study the lineages of the Arabs. And Aqil was an expert in the lineages. You tell him, for example, this family, he'll tell you their qualities and what they're known for. So he says to Aqil, I want you to select for me a woman from a family of brave people, from the family of warriors. And then he says, why don't you marry Fatima al-Kilabiyya? She was also known as al-Banin even before she was married, mother of the sons. She was from a very honorable tribe and honorable family, that even when she was a young girl, she was known as al-Banin. When he said, I want you to choose for me a woman from a brave family, he right away referred to this woman, al-Banin. Now the question that is usually asked, number one, is why would the commander of the faithful need consultation from Aqil, his older brother? Why would the commander of the faithful, who is the gate of the prophetic knowledge, need advice from an expert? He's supposed to be the expert. Who knows more about the lineages and about anything other than Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam? The lesson in this, my dears, is that the commander of the faithful is trying to teach us that in matters where we need an expert, there's no shame in referring to one, and that there is respect for people's expertise. When somebody's an expert, for example, in ansab, in lineages, then why not consult him? The other thing, it's a gesture of respect that Aqil is my older brother. The other thing is that the commander of the faithful, as we know according to the deductions by our ulama and the inferences from the ahadith, that the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam were not permitted to act according to their special knowledge, the knowledge of the unseen that Allah has gifted them with, but rather they are supposed to act in accordance with normal knowledge. You know, for example, we find that the commander of the faithful, when he went on the 19th of the month of Ramadan to Masjid al-Kufa, based on the special knowledge he has from Rasulullah, he'll be killed, he'll be struck by Ibn Muljam. But he's not permitted to act according to that knowledge and say, you know what, because I know that will happen, then I won't go. No, he's supposed to act based on normal knowledge, knowledge that is accessible to the rest of the people, so that they are basically equal to others with this respect. They're not acting in accordance with ilmul ghaib, they're not acting in accordance with miracles. Only in matters that religion stands upon, this is where they employ miracle, this is where they employ that special knowledge of the unseen. So Imam Ali alayhi salam asks Aqil, and Aqil says, Fatima bintu Hizam al-Kilabiyya. Now, when did this take place? Often you hear people say that this took place right after the demise of Lady Fatima. But when we analyze the chain of events, that does not stand. Why? Because the first of al-Banin's children was whom? Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. And he was born on 26 after Hijrah. Lady Fatima salamullah alayha, her demise was 11th year of Hijrah. So between the demise of Lady Fatima and between the birth of Abu al-Fadl, how many we have? 15 years. So there's no way we can say that right after the demise of Lady Fatima, Imam Ali says, well, find me a wife from a warrior and a courageous family and so on and so forth. Add to that Lady Fatima had left a wasiyah, a will, to Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. She says, after I die, marry Umama. Umama was the daughter of Zainab. Zainab was the sister of Fatima, according to one opinion, or the adoptee of Khadija, which was raised by Rasulullah, and therefore she's a sister with that respect. Now, the famous opinion, or I don't want to say famous opinion, but one of the very well-known opinions, is that Zainab Ruqayya, and the third one, I think Zainab, Ruqayya, and one more, huh? Maybe Kulthum, Ahsantum, were actually sisters of Fatima, older sisters of Fatima, from Khadija alayhi salam. And what some people use to indicate this is the verse from the Holy Quran. Now, the verse doesn't necessarily say that the Prophet had daughters, but because of the plural usage in the verse of hijab, they say then it's not one daughter, it's more. Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu, qul li azwajika wa banatika wa nisa al-mu'minin. Banat is the plural of bint. Bint is daughter, banat is daughters. So they say because the Quran says, tell your banat, your daughters, they say, okay, so Rasulullah doesn't have one daughter. Now someone can take this and say this could refer to the fact that the context of the verse was plural, so it would make sense to use plural on all of them. But why we have to take that route when we can still take it as it appears and say that, you know what, banat is plural, and let's accept, because we do have traditions that mention that Zainab, Kulthum, and Ruqayya are also the daughters of Rasulullah. We don't need to resort to the opinion that says they were adopted by Khadija because they were her nieces from her sister Hala. Khadija had a sister by the name Hala, and Hala had daughters, and because these daughters were orphans, the Prophet took them and raised them, and therefore they became like his daughters. Anyhow, whether they were the biological sisters of Fatima, whether they were just sisters that were adoptees of Rasulullah, whatever the situation may be, this Umama is the daughter of that Zainab. Zainab bint al-As. Umama was married to the commander of the faithful. After Umama, there's a report that he also married Asma bint Umays. Now, Asma bint Umays had two husbands prior to the commander of the faithful. Her first husband was Ja'far, the brother of Ali ibn Abi Talib, who was martyred where? In Mu'tah, in Jordan today. When she came back after he was martyred, a few years later, Abu Bakr married her. And she bore a son from Abu Bakr by the name of Muhammad. And when Abu Bakr died, Muhammad was only 2 years old. Later on, Ali ibn Abi Talib married her and had children from her, two of them. And he raised Muhammad to an extent that Muhammad became one of his closest and sincere and loyal companions, who was later martyred by the Umayyads. They killed him in a very, very brutal way. This is Muhammad. Now, often you find some of our brothers from the other school telling you that Muawiyah is the maternal uncle of the mu'mineen, Khalul mu'mineen. They give him a status because he's the Khal, the maternal uncle. You say, how is he the maternal uncle? He said, because Habiba, his sister, was married to who? Rasulullah. So therefore, he is the uncle of the mu'mineen. You say, well, what about Muhammad, son of Abu Bakr? His sister was Aisha, married to Rasulullah. So Muhammad should be also the uncle. But they never mention him, they don't give him any attention or respect. For one main reason, his loyalty to the commander of the faithful, that deprived him from any status with respect to the others. That's why they don't give him any highlights. He was one of the very close disciples of the commander. He was of the Hawariyin. Hawariyun, like the Hawarin of Isa alayhi salam, this is a level of companionship that is given to a few members, those who are sincere and have a very high level of devotion to the Ahlul Bayt. They call them Hawariyu al-Imam. One of them was Al-Shaheed Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi ala Muhammad. So here, Imam alayhi salam, after Asma bint Umays, after Umama, and after others, again we said there are a total of 8 after Lady Fatima, throughout this journey, he married As-Sayyida al-Banin. So some of the reports that sometimes you hear that, well, al-Banin came to the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib, she took care of Hassan and Hussein because they were children. This does not hold much weight. Why? Because when she was married, year 25, a year before the birth of Abu al-Fadl, Hassan was already, salamullahi alayhi, was 22. Hussein was 21. Zainab was 19. So they were already adults. In fact, they were married, at least Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein alayhi salam. So therefore, we can't really accept these narrations that say, well, you know, they were little children, she took care of them, and of course she took care of them later on, as in she gave them all of her love and all of her respect, and made sure that her own children treat them as masters and not just as brothers, because she recognized the value of this household. One of the very unique qualities of the Sayyidah is that she knew the Ahlul Bayt. Knowing their statuses and knowing their greatness is what made Baneen what we have and what the status that she has and that she occupies today in Islam. She became one of the gates of fulfilling of needs, Babul Hawa'ij ilallah, by that very love and devotion to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, to the extent that she was happy to sacrifice all of her children. And according to the narration, she only had boy children, and the boys were four children. Abu al-Fadl was the first of them. Ja'far, Uthman, and Aun, or Ja'far, Aun, and Uthman. And perhaps a different name for Aun or another name. These are the four children that were martyred in Karbala for Sayyid Baneen alayhi salam. And the riwayat tell us that when Baneen found out that they were martyred, she was not upset, she was not angry, she was not saddened. In fact, she was saddened that Imam Hussein alayhi salam did not come back alive. That was her major concern when the person was declaring the tragedy of Karbala in Medina and saying that Al-Hussein alayhi salam was martyred, or the caravan of the pride came back. Her main concern was Hussein alayhi salam, before asking about any of her children. Why? Because she did not see Hussein as somebody who was the son of her husband. That's not how she viewed him. She viewed him as the Imam of her time. This is what made Baneen so unique, is that she looked at our beloved Imams as the Imams of the time. Hassan and Hussein are the masters of the youth of paradise. So she was not seeing them as, well, these are my husband's children. That's not the way she was looking at them. That is why she was more than happy to sacrifice her children for the sake of the nusra of our beloved Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. She stayed and she lived for up until year 64. So basically almost 3 years after Karbala is when she left this world. Salamullahi alayha, the day she was born, the day she died, and the day that she will be resurrected on the day of judgment, inshaAllah, to be a shafi' for all of us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the noble status and great status of this woman, to fulfill all of our hajat, to grant us our wishes, and to cure all those who are ill from the mu'mineen and mu'minat, and to end the sufferings of our brethren in Gaza and Palestine, and to give them victory over their enemies, and to hasten the glorious reappearance of our beloved 12th Imam al-Hujjat al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu farajahu al-Sharif, wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I want to take this opportunity to ask you guys, inshallah, for any of your questions, reflections. It doesn't have to be in the topic, it could be about other matters as well. Inshallah, I'd be happy to address your questions. We'll start with the sisters as usual. If you have a question, please proceed. Brothers, Brother Hamid.
Assalamu
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Regarding the Khal al-Mu'mineen, the ironic part is that they believe Aisha was Prophet Muhammad's favorite wife. So by that standard, Muhammad bin Abu Bakr should be higher
status than Muawiyah.
Muawiyah, because they don't even talk about Habiba except in relation to Muawiyah.
To Muawiyah. Ahsant. Very good point. Yes.
And then my question is regarding the daughters of Prophet Muhammad. When we sometimes discuss these matters with our brothers on the other mazhab, they immediately come back and say, they bring down the fazail of Fatima alayhi salam, because they say, well, Prophet Muhammad said this and this about her because you guys believe she was the only one, so because she was the only child he had, that's why he was. No. That's what I'm saying. It becomes for us, it becomes kind of an issue if you don't believe he had other daughters, because then it brings her what do you call
it serves
status.
It serves our belief that she was not the only daughter, because it's not like an only child that he was. And plus, we have to understand that the remarks the Prophet made about Fatima are not meant to be the remarks of a father towards a daughter. Why? Because your relationship with your children on a personal level do not need to be on the minbar. So we have to understand there's two aspects to the Prophet's personality. There's the father Rasulullah, the husband Rasulullah, the normal human Rasulullah, and then there is the divine messenger, the apostle, the representative of Allah. We have to differentiate between these two. Now he's ma'soom in both, but we have to understand that he does not utilize his minbar, he does not utilize his position of messengerhood to serve his own personal interest and talk about his family as his family. If a speaker, for example, ascends the minbar, a sheikh, sayyid, whatever, and all they talk about is how much they love their children, you would really not appreciate that. Like, why are you wasting our time with this? With all respect to you and your children, but that's not what we are here for. We want to listen and understand and learn about Islam. We respect the fact that you love your children, but we don't need to hear this here. Oh, you know my son, oh, he's so unique, I love him so much. My daughter, oh, I love her so much, she's such a great woman. You would find this, mundane and actually not very well appreciated. So Rasulullah ascends the minbar, Friday khutbah, stands in front of the Sahaba and teaches them, Fatima is a part of me. Here he's not talking about Fatima, his daughter. He's talking about Fatima, that very special human being that Allah has commanded him to show her praise and to praise her and to show her status and to teach people and to warn them from ever angering or hurting Fatima salamullahi alayha. So really it wasn't that he's talking about his daughter as his daughter. He's talking about her as the greatest woman of humankind, of all women. She is the lady of heaven, Sayyidatu Nisa'i al-Jannah, Sayyidatu Nisa'i al-Alameen. So therefore, all these remarks are not meant to talk about the relationship between a father and a daughter as much as they are to show the status of that very special woman, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about Maryam. Was Maryam being talked about in this whole chapter of Maryam and all these praises, Inna Allah astafaki wa taharaki wa astafaki ala nisa'il alameen? Was that because she is going to be the mother of Isa? No, even before the birth of Isa, that woman had a very special status. Was it because she's from the family of Al Imran? Because she's from the children of Israel alayhi salam? No, because she was Maryam. She was a pure woman, a great woman who achieved a very high and lofty status. Likewise, Fatima to Zahra salamullahi alayha. So the Prophet here is only showing us that, look, this is the exemplar, this is your leader, this is your shafi'ah, this is the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed her to be the mirror of his anger and his pleasure. Whenever she's pleased, Allah is pleased. Whenever she's angry, Allah is angry, and so on and so forth. Ahsantum. Any other questions from the sister side? Sure.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa
So
rahmatullah.
people say to play chess in Muharram is haram, is it?
Playing chess, not just in Muharram, in any time, it's haram.
Say it's not like for money, just like to play it for fun.
Yeah, so His Eminence Sayyid Sistani says even for fun, chess is haram.
How about checkers?
Checkers, there's two things about checkers. Number one, is it a instrument that is commonly used in gambling? From what I understand in here, it's not. So today, in our common understanding, if checkers is not considered a game that is used in gambling, then it's permissible to play it without using money in gambling, if it's like just a normal game. But the second thing that I want to mention is one should not put a lot of time and energy into these games, because there's other things that are more important that we can do for fun and benefit from, as opposed to playing checkers or other board games.
I have another question.
Sure.
So say you're fasting during Ramadan, but you're sick. Can you fast after Ramadan for that? And then I have and then with that question, say it's Eid you're going to fast on. Why is it haram to fast on Eid?
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to not fast on two Eids, the Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. And the reason for that is He wanted us to enjoy these days. They are days of eating and drinking, and also to test our servitude. Are we really following what Allah wants or what we like and desire? If I say, you know what, I feel like fasting on the day of Eid, then I'm actually following my desire. But when Allah says, no, I don't want you to fast on that day, then I show my submission and say, I accept and I will not fast on that day. But yes, when you're sick and you break your fast, you need to make it up during the year, but after the day of Eid. It could be the 4th, 5th, whenever. Better to avoid the first 3, although it's only haram the first day. Ahsantum. Thank you. Any other questions from the sisters? Yes? Go ahead.
Assalamu
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Say there's, as much as I know, there's like different schools in between our Shia community, and one of them is like Ismaili Shias. Because as much as I know, they till the 6th Imam, we have the same moms, and after that it's different.
Yes.
So one of the things that I've heard is like we can't eat their food, or like we can't talk to them, or like something like. I just want to make sure if there's any rules. Or
Yeah, so our ulama in general, because Ismailis are of different branches. Some Ismailis are still Muslims. They still believe in the Shahada of La ilaha illallah and Muhammad Rasulullah, and they still observe Salah and so on and so forth. These Ismailis are considered Muslims. We treat them like the other madhahib, and therefore we can eat their food and coexist with them like we do with the rest. But then there are groups which I don't know that are here, maybe somewhere in India, that have abandoned Salah or have a very different understanding of Islam, such that they have diverted very far from the teachings of Islam, and they don't consider some of the wajibat as really wajibat. And by that definition, or by that criteria, they would not fall under the banner of Islam, and therefore, of course, we cannot eat their dhabaih. But when it comes to eating, when it comes to communicating, when it comes to coexisting, it can be done. It's easy. They're Muslims. What I would worry about is when it reaches the point of marriage, when we reach that level. This is where it becomes a little bit risky. And this is always the advice, is that marriage, as much as we like to coexist with everyone else, it is proven to be a failure or a failed marriage when it is outside the same school of thought. Then we receive many questions on the national level, and we see the struggles of certain wives to husbands who are not Shia 12ers, and how much they struggle in trying to maintain their rituals and their faith. So sometimes we have this cultural issue where an Ismaili and a 12er could be from the same culture, the same ethnic background, and therefore they find it more comfortable to come together and to start a family and to get married. But then they come in and face these clashes. For example, what do you do when the Ismaili, for example, some of them offends Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, calls him a liar? What do you do at that point? Because they believe that these are fake imams right after as-Sadiq alayhi salam. They believe in Ismail and the children of Ismail. So imagine in a household, one of the parents is offending Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim, Ali al-Hadi, al-Jawad. How do you deal with that? So, not even our Sunni brothers offend these 12. Most of our Sunni brothers respect them as great scholars. They don't see them as imams, but they see them as scholars. Some of these people, and I can't generalize, but some of them see them as liars. And that's why we have some ahadith, I can't tell you whether they're authentic or not right now, that consider some of these groups worse than the Nawasib. And that says a lot. But again, we don't want to generalize. Coexistence can happen, but we have to keep it to that limit. Ahsantum. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Sadine. Go ahead. Brothers, you have a question on your side? Yes, Brother Ali, go ahead.
To build up on a previous question about like chess, if checkers ruling is based on if common view sees it as gambling, then why isn't the same ruling based on chess?
Very good question, actually. Very good. So our ulama actually have controversial opinions with respect to this point. You have ulama like Sayyid Khomeini, rahimahullah, for example, who says that the criteria for chess being haram is the fact that it's a gambling instrument. And because today it's not a gambling instrument, then it's no longer haram. Whereas you have people like a Sayyid al-Sistani or Sayyid al-Khoi, they say the criteria is not that chess is a gambling instrument. The criteria is that it's chess. This is what they understand from the ahadith. The emphasis in the ahadith on the impermissibility of chess made this group conclude that chess is haram per se in and of itself. Whereas other people like His Eminence, rahmatullahi alayhi, Sayyid al-Khumaini, they said no. we understand from certain contextual clues based on his understanding of the ahadith that chess was haram, not because of it being chess per se, but because of the fact that it was commonly known to be a gambling instrument. So these are two different understandings of the ahadith. So that's why when you ask about checkers, because checkers, we don't have ahadith that even mention them per se. They probably did not exist as a common game. But because they fall under the general criteria of if they are a gambling instrument, then they are haram. Because we have two things. We have gambling instruments and we have chess being haram per se. The ulama that do not believe chess is haram per se, they bring it under gambling instruments. But ulama like His Eminence Sayyid Sistani, they says, no, this is not just a gambling instrument, it's haram in and of itself. Ahsantum. Sisters, yes.
So, what are other good months to fast in that's not like Ramadan?
The month of Rajab, which is coming up inshallah, and also the month of Sha'ban. These are very two important months. I highly recommend for those who are capable, of course, who have the energy to do so, to make use of that. Ahsantum. Maryam, go ahead.
Oh, Assalamu
Alaykum
alaikum.
assalam wa rahmatullah.
Basically, so I've had like many debates. Like whenever somebody finds out, like I'm Shia, they'll be like, "Oh, you're a kafir. Oh, you're haram. You're a follower of Ali. You think Ali is like, you treat him like he's Prophet Muhammad." Da da da. How do I reply? Like,
Very good. Unfortunately, it's been very common and it's been trending, in the recent years, especially with the social media and interaction among our Muslim brethren in schools here in Minneapolis, as we have, mashallah, very large Muslim population. Unfortunately, many of them have been educated wrong by their schools or their families. They associate Shia with kufr. Some of them teach their children that Shia worship Ali ibn Abi Talib, and that's wrong. We have to explain to them, number one, is that we do not consider Ali ibn Abi Talib as higher status than the Prophet. Rather, he is a student of the Prophet, a servant of the Prophet, and he is the successor of the Prophet. And we also have to explain to them there's a difference between Shia 12ers and between what are known as Alawites. Some of the Alawites that believe, some, not all of them. You find some of them in Turkey, some of them in Syria. Some, again, I want to emphasize some, not all, that believe that Ali is a divine. He's the manifestation of God. Of course, these people are kuffar. We also say the same thing about them. We say these are kuffar, but they're not the Shia 12ers. So these people, unfortunately, have things mixed up. So we have to explain that to them. We believe in Shahadatu la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, and we believe that Ali is the Imam. He's the Wali after Rasulullah. We don't give him the status of a Rasul. He's not a Rasul, right? So we have to educate them on this in a nice way, maybe guide them to some books, to some lectures. But if it becomes a debate for the sake of debate, I don't recommend it. I highly, highly recommend staying away from that. Why? Because some people don't have the knowledge and the bandwidth to actually enter into a debate because they don't know anything. It's all based on assumptions, right? And you don't want to be put in that situation with these people, right? You're saying something to them and they're saying something back based on their emotions and based on their wrong understanding, and then it becomes heated and usually doesn't end too well. So I highly recommend that from the start you say, look, if you want to learn about us, read a book, check this website out, listen to this lecture. But don't just base it on what you hear, because what you hear is not true. Shia is different than what you understand and what you hear, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a good way to come to a conclusion as opposed to getting into a heated debate and then it doesn't end too well. Yes, go ahead, sister.
So, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa
So my
rahmatullah.
question is, if a girl that's like she's 15 and she says that her parents are Muslim and she's not wearing a hijab, is she still counted as a Muslim?
So she's a Muslim still, but she's have committed a sin for not observing hijab, because hijab is wajib. Just like salah. If somebody's a Muslim but they don't observe salah, they have committed a sin because salah is wajib. So hijab is wajib, salah is wajib, avoiding all the muharramat and so on and so forth. So she's still a Muslim, but she is at fault, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide her, and we wish for her and help her as much as we can to be guided back to wearing hijab. We have to be also nice to her, because sometimes she's going through certain problems, psychological issues, and we want to be mindful of that. So when we come across a sister who's struggling with hijab, we should avoid labeling her and calling her out. As opposed to that, we should nicely explain to her the importance of hijab, help her figure out how to wear hijab, and maybe go slowly so that we can see her again in the best appearance that is desired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
One more question. If a girl, like a person, does like a girl's hijab like out of her hair, if like another boy sees her hair, so like, how does that work? If like a girl's hijab falls down and a boy like sees her hair.
She just has to cover it again, because did she mean to do that?
No.
She didn't mean to do that. It accidentally fell. She needs to pull it right back up. That's what she needs to do. Now, just like in salah, because in salah, women cannot show not even one piece of hair. She has to cover everything. But sometimes it slips. If it slips, all she needs to do is pause, fix it, and continue her salah. So likewise, if she's out, but I think there need to be precautionary measures taken. So for example, a sister should not wear a very loose hijab such that it's more than likely going to slip, right? Well, then she's going to be responsible for doing that. But if she wears, it's like, imagine a boy wearing a pants without belt and they're very wide. They're most likely to fall. Well, if they fall, that's their problem because they didn't tie them well. So likewise for a sister, if she wears hijab, she should make sure that it's put on right, tight, so that it doesn't fall from her hair. But if it falls accidentally, she's not at fault.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yes. Any other questions from the brother's side or this? Yes, Brother Hamid.
About the sister that asked question about the other folks asking us, you believe in the wrong thing and stuff. One of the best things that, I kind of debate with some of them is I think one of the best things as an initial, like you said, don't get into too deep because they have a very superficial level of understanding. But one of the best argument is Hadith al-Saqalain, is what I, because it's in their books, that I leave two weighty things behind. One is the Holy Quran, and the second one is Itrat Ahl Bayt, right? And then you tell them that we take our fiqh from Ahl Bayt, the way we pray is from Ahl Bayt, the way we make wuzu is from Ahl Bayt, the way we fast and all of that things. What do you guys do? Your imams didn't come till 200 years later. So where are you taking these,
Yes, very good point to raise. Ahsant. Hadith al-Thiqlain is one of the most powerful ahadith. But again, the other person has to be willing to learn. You tell them this hadith, they will say, no, we don't have that hadith, and they haven't read their books, right? Because they're being arrogant or stubborn about it. But if they are willing to listen, yes, a great way to start out is with Hadith al-Thiqlain, the hadith of the two precious things or the two weighty things. Santu. Go ahead. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Basically, I've seen like a lot of like marriages where the husband is Shia and the wife is Sunni. And a lot of the time, the husband ends up like stop praying like the right way.
They stop praying the right way?
Yeah. And he just completely forgets about.
Well, that's probably, we can't generalize, but some people, be it the husband or the wife, when they don't have enough confidence in their belief system, when they don't have enough knowledge about their Islam, then of course they might easily let go of certain things to please their spouse, and that's why it's risky. Even for the man, it's risky. If the man doesn't have enough knowledge about his faith, he should not marry outside of the faith, because that would impact him. Just like how it would impact the women, it would impact the man as well. So that's why we recommend for both, whether they are men or women, to marry within the school of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and not to go out so that they don't risk themselves, and more important, confuse their children. I've seen many children that are very confused because they come from two different madhahib. They're often confused. 9 times out of 10, they'll wake up in this world, they'll grow up to be very confused, and they don't know how to balance between their father and their mother's belief system. Ahsantum. Ahsantum jami'an. Thank you. No other questions, inshallah. We'll conclude with ziyarah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alayka ya Rasul Allah. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayki ya Fatimah al-Zahra. سيدة نساء العالمين من الأولين والآخرين. السلام على الحسن المجتبى وعلى الحسين الشهيد بكربلاء. السلام على التسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين علي السجاد ومحمد الباقر وجعفر الصادق وموسى الكاظم وعلي الرضا ومحمد الجواد وعلي الهادي والحسن العسكري والحجة الخلف القائم المهدي. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليهم صلاة كثيرة دائمة.